Good morning, Malaysia, and welcome to Grandstand. I'm Jared Ratnam. It is certainly a very exciting day for Malaysians. Of course, we're all waiting for the address or the special address by the Right Honourable Prime Minister, Datuk Seri Najib and Razak. That's due to happen very, very soon. But prior to getting there and to understand what his plans are for the country, we are going to talk a little bit about what's being talked about. A lot's being said about the economy, especially on social media. You get a lot of people talking about a lot of speculation, a lot of things that we don't understand. We're going to try to go through some of these things, and to help us do that today, we have someone who's very into being an economist, and he's been doing a lot of research as to what's happening in the country. We have Manokaran Mottain, who is the chief economist from Alliance Bank, joining us today just prior to the special address by the Honourable Prime Minister, Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak. Mr. Manokaran, thank you very much for joining us. It's good to have you back again. The last time I met you was during the budget thing.
Thank you, Jared.
Well, there's so much to be talked about, so much to be understood and digested. As Malaysians, we're trying to learn. For those of us who are not economy savvy or economic savvy, we try as much as possible to understand. And most of our information comes from what we read. We try to digest that. That doesn't happen. We're in a coffee shop somewhere talking to friends, trying to make light of these things. Well, having said what we have said, it is certainly going to be interesting, because apparently this is the last mile of the roadmap towards 2020, and that's going to be addressed in June, somewhere May, June. The Prime Minister is going to be addressing that. But for now, can we safely say that we're looking at austerity measures in light of what's happening around the world economically?
Yeah, at the moment, it's I will look at it. The overall announcement today, later today, will likely to focus on the what will consist of some realistic numbers, and also the measures to be undertaken in the light of this crisis, the falling oil prices, and also depreciating of the Malaysian ringgit.
Right.
So I would say I can sum it up as austerity measures.
So the thing here is that most of us who don't understand the situation believe that with the implementation of the GST, that's going to bring everything up, prices are going to go up, but that's not the case. The world over, the economy is being affected, and this is because of one thing, oil, and the production of oil and the prices of oil, which is apparently going down as we speak. So how do we make light of this? How do we understand this situation?
You see, the thing is that when we did the budget 2015, way back in October last year, the oil price at that time already sliding from June. But the thing is that we expected it is not going to drop that fast. You see, so the estimated price for the budget was $105 per barrel.
Right. So when we put the budget together last year, it was based on the oil price being at $105 per barrel.
Yes. And then what happened was after December, the oil prices really fell, sharply, to a level of hitting the lowest level of 45. Yesterday it was trading around 49. Okay, but still more than half of whatever we have estimated. So on that basis, we have to see that the government target for the revenue. Okay, when they do the planning, they say that X amount of revenue will come in, so we will spend Y amount of expenditure based on that amount. So in this case now, and also we need to understand that 30% of our revenue, whether you like it or not, comes from oil and gas. So in this case, the price has fallen by more than half of it, and certainly under the new prices, the current prices, our revenue as expected will not be met. It is going to be at least half of whatever we have estimated earlier, and for that reason, so the revenue is sort of like come down,
right?
And you need to see where we can save. And this is where the government's role there.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The government got to come out with some kind of guidance for people like us, If not, everybody will be guessing, you know, based on that current numbers, the fiscal deficit is going to be more than 3%, this and that. Okay, so we don't want to allow this. So that's why the government is taking a proactive measure to come out with some kind of announcement now. It is timely, actually, I would say.
No, because as you came in and as we got in the airwaves, you did, before we got in the airwaves, you did mention that there's too much of speculation on the outside.
Yes. And also, when you speculate more and more by the market analysts and all that, the confidence on the economy, especially on the currency, will drop, you know, will come down. So because of the loss of confidence, you can see the ringgit value now. Ringgit depreciation is largely because of the confidence factor. Okay, so we have to say that, okay, if it is true that we want to maintain the fiscal deficit of 3%, what are the action plan? Option 1, what are the projects may be cancelled or may be deferred? Okay, if you say that, okay, you admit, the government admits that, you know, oh, sorry, on the current development, you know, development, we cannot meet the fiscal deficit of 3% by 2015. Okay, fine. Because people also, and people want to know, okay, if it is not met 3%, what is the level the government is looking at? So this is where the government, we expect the government today will likely to announce, majority of it is austerity measures, with some focus on the development expenditure that has been targeted. There are certain projects, non-strategic, okay, can be delayed or deferred.
Of course, there are big ticket projects that we're going to be talking about. One of them being the MRT that has to continue.
You have to continue, but you can do what, you know, MRT second phase. You can sort of delay it. We have 11 Malaysia plan is coming soon. Actually, I believe the MRT second phase and LRT third phase is supposed to be under the 11 Malaysia plan, but plans are done now. So you can sort of like, you can say for sure that these two projects will be taken off, and also the high impact, the rail system, high-speed rail Singapore one can also be sort of like deferred.
Of course, that I think will be put on the back burner. But let's go back a little bit to understand how this problem started. Now, most of us know, I mean, the general idea is that, okay, the oil prices have gone down. Everyone's got the general idea. But how does something like this happen?
Okay. Looking at why the oil prices came down is because of the supply glut. You have to understand the mechanics involved, supply and demand. When a price is fixed based on the supply and demand factors. So in this case, the supply of oil has gone up, has sort of like exceeded the demand part a lot because of the continued production by the OPEC countries and also newfound oil, you know, the shale gas and shale oil by the US. Okay, that's sort of like you know, sent in a lot of supply of oil into the market. So, and on the demand side, we have to understand that now current uncertainties are there. The global economies are not doing that well. China is not doing, I mean, China is slowing down. India has slowed down, but now is sort of like stabilized. So these are the major economies which are, you know, all dependent economies have been growing very much slower than the previously anticipated. So demand from these major oil importing countries have dropped also. So on one hand, your demand has sort of like come down drastically because of the economic activities. Okay. On the other hand, supply is sort of like maintained or increased. So so this is the problem, that the price got to adjust. Okay, when you have abundance of certain goods, everybody will be rushing in to sell their commodities.
Right.
So in this case, it's a demand. I mean, the buyer's market. So it is because of that the oil prices have come down.
So, well, with the oil prices coming down now, what we need to understand is the the pulling off of the subsidy for oil in Malaysia, or for petrol and diesel in Malaysia. So that subsidy has been taken off. The price of oil is meant to fluctuate, go up and down. So will we see a decline in or rather a reduction in the price of petrol and diesel in the coming months?
Certainly, based on the current price, we already estimated there will be at least another 30 to 30 cents drop or adjustment in prices of RON 95 and also RON 97 and all that.
Right. So there are going to be adjustments.
Yes. February 1st, you will know. Based on the we compute. We are not sure the APM mechanism used by the Ministry of Domestic Trade, but we do see looking at the current development, and our own estimate suggests that it is possible lower prices.
With the removal of the subsidy, we apparently saved about 15 to 20 billion.
Yes.
Yeah. And does that help buffer this problem that we have now?
No, it's not.
It's not,
because at the time when the oil price was 70 to 80, we thought, okay, when they removed the oil subsidy, okay, it's a very good move and all that. It was because a shortfall of 20 billion, 15 to 20 billion, is sort of like to adjust it. By the withdrawal of subsidies from, you must understand the subsidy is a major part, one of the lumpy item that has been sort of like lumped under the operating expenditure. So in order to adjust, the government tried to adjust their their spending part by withdrawing the subsidies. Okay. But the problem is the prices from 70 dropped even further to 45.
Right.
So now
this is something we haven't seen in many years, isn't it? Or we haven't seen before, the prices dropping to 45. We have seen that.
The last crisis, 2008-2009, it has gone down to as low as 34. Okay, but the thing is that it has sort of like recovered fast because the emerging economies like China, India, and those in the region, Southeast Asia, they have been growing faster.
But the landscape was different then.
Yes.
China was an emerging economy then. Now it is one of the economies in the world, and with that, with a decline in the use of oil and gas within economies like this, how are we going to bounce back? How does the system bounce back into a proper swing?
The only way is OPEC countries got to cut their production,
right,
reduce the supply. By reducing the supply, then only the prices are going to. At the moment, at this point of time, OPEC countries led by Saudi Arabia, they have been very adamant that they are not going to do anything about it. The next meeting is expected in June. So, and also based on the current situation, we think that the persistent or sustained level of oil prices at this kind of level is going to be there for at least 3 to 3 months. Okay,
right.
I'm looking at that. My take is at least 3 months. It will remain at this kind of level, and then second half of the year of this year might likely to come back around 70 to 80. So on average, we should see about maybe about $60 or 60 to 70 for this year.
Okay.
Definitely we cannot reach 105 that we have estimated. That's why the government is coming out with a statement that, okay, look, we cannot achieve this. Is something that out of
whatever
our
goals
hand.
or plans we had based on the oil price being what do you call it, oil being priced at $105 per barrel, all that has to be changed at this point.
Has to be changed. Okay. So I don't think the rating agencies, then you know, people might say that, you know, the government come out with a new statement,
right?
Then you are sort of like opening your, you know, opening for more weaknesses and all that. That's not true. Actually, to me, it's very simple. The rating agencies, they have already maintained, okay, Fitch has already maintained the negative outlook. Okay, they know that it is not in our hand. If they think that, you know, Fitch could have easily downgraded Malaysia, but they did not. They only maintained their outlook part. Okay, now the next is Moody and S&P is waiting. Okay, so now Moody's and S&P is more rational people. They will look at it whether this is the wrongdoing of the government or the external concern. So in this case, it's the external issue there.
Right.
It's so unfortunate that Malaysia is vulnerable to this situation.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about rating agencies in a while. Maybe you can explain to us how these rating agencies work for those of us who are not economically savvy. But in the meantime, let's talk about the OPEX and CAPEX in Malaysia. What does this mean? Can you explain to us briefly what it is and how we need to work on this?
Okay, at a time of crisis like this, oil prices have come down, revenue has been sort of like slashed. Okay, expected revenue is not met, and you need to curb your expenditure. You know, government got to come out with a tightening budget. You know, tightening expenditure. So in this case, that there is two type of expenditure for government to, you know, tighten. One is operating expenditure. Operating expenditure is among the items that has been sort of like big items. Subsidy, okay, they have withdrawn, okay, then they have saved about 15 to 20 billion there. Not enough at the current oil prices, so they might look at whether they need to, you know, tighten the emoluments and the perks and all that. You know, there's also another 60 billion is allocated for that such purposes, for emolument and also for other expenditures. It's more like
emolument, supply and services.
Supply and services also. So supply and services, they can sort of like cut down certain spending on but the emolument part, what they can do is they might look at it how to, you know, they might come up with some kind of austerity measures that we have earlier adopted in the last crisis. Something like entertainment allowances can be.
So when you talk about emolument, you're talking about this predominantly about the civil service.
Yes, civil service. They are meant for civil service. Okay, so they might put you know, they might go slow on spending on traveling, and also they might be touching on the seminars and conferences, you know. So that's that area that you know, that can be other things in the so-called operating expenditure, very sticky. You know, you can't touch on that. So after having said that, it's still not enough. Maybe about 5 to 6 billion you can save. Right. Okay, from there, then you'll go to the next one is development expenditure. People always say that development expenditure should not be touched, because when you touch development expenditure, that means you are affecting, you are hurting the growth process. Growth process, economic activities. But I would say that you know, certain non-strategic projects can be deferred. I'm not saying that you need to cancel. Okay, so you can sort of like defer it, and then when the situation come back, you know, when they are going to announce the 11 Malaysia plan, you can lump all these projects under that. You know, that is for the 5. So there you can sort of like maybe about 10 million, 10 billion or what, you know. So 10 and 5 is 15. 15 earlier you already saved 15. I think that's more than enough. Having said that, still not enough to target your 3% deficit, fiscal deficit. That's another big question that the market is expecting. What is the next level of realistic level of fiscal deficit?
Right.
I would say 3 to 3.5 should be okay.
3 to 3.5 should be okay.
Yeah,
it's not good, but it's okay.
It's okay. The rating agencies can still accept it, you know, that this is because of the oil prices, which is not in our hands.
Right.
You know?
The oil prices are not in our hands, and that's something we need to keep in mind every time we analyze the economy, especially as lay people, as general public. When we look at things, the outlook across the world is looks pretty negative at this point, and that's probably why the Prime Minister needs to address the nation. Also, of course, talk about things that need to be done. Well, if you're just joining us on the show, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib Razak is expected to announce specific and proactive measures to deal with the current economic developments and the financial situation in Malaysia. We'll take a break, and we'll come back and find out more from Mr. Manokaran Mottain, who's the Chief Economist, joining us today. Just before we listen to the Prime Minister's address, or his special address, which will be on very, very soon. Stay with us right here on Bernama TV. This is the Grandstand. Hello and welcome back to Grandstand. I'm Jared Ratnam. Of course, shortly we will be listening to the Prime Minister. He has a special address for the nation, and of course he wants to talk about proactive measures to deal with current economic developments and the financial situation in Malaysia. The measures, they say, will include strategies to help people and business community affected by the recent floods and to rebuild damaged infrastructure. Now, the floods is another thing that was not expected. It's worse than we first thought it would be, and that's taken quite a bit, a huge cost in dealing with the floods, and we're doing the best we can in order to get these people back to their normal lives, their daily lives, and that's going to cost us quite a bit. I don't know what you've heard, but what do you think are the losses that have been incurred within the flood-prone states?
I think the rebuilding of Kelantan in particular itself.
Kelantan in particular, yeah, okay.
Kelantan in particular is going to go cost more than a couple of billions of ringgits. You know, you need, because the rebuilding of houses is important first of all, and then also the infrastructure, the roads and the bridges were affected. So these are the few things that is going to cost them, you know. But you know, if you are looking at economic losses, could be more than that, because
just the agricultural sector in Kelantan recorded a 105 million ringgit loss. Just the agricultural sector.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's
because all their produce has been wiped out because of the flood. So I would say that we delay some of these projects, you know, non-strategic projects. It is timely, you know, for the government to relook at, you know, can channel some of this money to rebuild. And then also in the current budget, if we look at it, quite a sizable amount of money has been allocated for construction of housing. One Malaysia, Prima housing, and then houses for the youth and all those things. So I would, you know, as an economist, at this point of time, we need homes for the people in Kelantan. So I think we can divert some of these funds, you know, that has already been allocated, okay, meant for housing. So divert, I mean, maybe you can sort of like to rebuild Kelantan.
They say that, I mean, whatever we do is in preparation for another world financial crisis, and I mean that's an impending thing. And you look like you're smiling, and you believe that won't happen. I think
I've been seeing. No. I'm not saying that it is not going to happen. I've been seeing that it is going to happen in a My prediction is a couple of years.
In a couple of years.
Yes.
So we need to buffer and bolster ourselves as much as possible, right?
Because you see, nowadays the cycle, economic cycle, is not coming every 10 years. If you look at it, it look like every 3 to 5 years you are experiencing a crisis already.
Right.
The global financial crisis came in 2008. Now is 2015, 7 years. Okay.
It used to
in
take,
between we have shorter crises also.
But why do you think that is? Why is this trend evolving into something different? We used to see it every 10 years, every 12 years, but now every 3-4 years there seems to be some kind of a glitch or hitch.
People are getting smarter and smarter. Okay, we have first class regulation, all the policies is in hand. Okay, but people are getting smarter. They know the loopholes, like the virus,
Right.
Look at the virus nowadays. The dengue is so difficult to sort of like control it. It's something like that, people is mainly because of people.
Right.
They abuse the privileges are given, but people abuse their privileges. This is the problem. Okay.
And when
greedy
say,
people.
Right. You're talking about the banking sector, because in Europe itself, there's so much of problems with the banking sector. Yeah.
If you look at it, the last crisis caused by people. Men, all these subprime issues and all that. So because of the advanced financial initiatives or financial landscape, people can sort of like
right. Well, we've just heard word that we may be going live anytime soon for the special address by the Right Honourable Prime Minister of Malaysia, Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak. We're still waiting for that to happen. That's going to be happening anytime soon. As soon as we get the okay from the studio, we're going to take you straight to the venue. In the meantime, very quickly, let's talk about the pegging of the ringgit. In 98, we did it, seeing as to what happened, how the ringgit was depreciating. So we pegged it. Do you think that's a good idea?
That's not the good idea. Actually, I would say that at that time, 97, 98, Malaysian financial system, we had a lot of weaknesses where the speculators they took advantage of all this and they attacked the ringgit. Now we have sort of built our financial system into a stronger financial system under the the central bank, under Dr. Seri and all that. So they have sort of like put in place the banking sector is healthier, stronger. I think, in my opinion, is they are able to withstand any attacks. So in this case, ringgit has sort of like depreciated. Okay, if you look at it, we are not in a new situation. We have seen this earlier, 2008, 2009, when the oil prices also was plunging. At that time, our ringgit also came down as much, in tandem. Okay, from 314 at that time, 313. It came to as low as 374. Okay, and now our June level was 314, the strongest level, and now we are trading around ding dong 355 to 360.
We're going to take a short break. Of course, we're going to come back right after the Prime Minister's address. We're going to take you live to the Prime Minister's address. Of course, this is a special address, and he's going to be laying out some plans for us as a nation, and of course we'll come back and talk about it. In the meantime, we'd like to thank you, Manokaran Mottain, who's joining us. He's the Chief Economist of Alliance Bank. We'll now take you straight to the live address by the Right Honourable. Welcome back to Grandstand. I'm Jared Ratnam, and of course, a while ago we heard the special address by the Honourable Prime Minister, Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak, talking about special measures or proactive measures to deal with the current economic developments. That was live from PICC. Back in the studio, however, we have Manokaran Mottain, who is the chief economist at Alliance Bank, joining us to walk us through things that have been said or measures that are going to be taken by Malaysia and plans by Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak. Encik Manokaran, once again, thank you very much for staying in with us. I know you're a very busy man at this point, a lot of reports to be written, and what seems to be standing out is we did talk about the big ticket projects that may be put on the back burner. That doesn't seem like it's likely to happen. He says that is going to continue, according to Datuk Seri Najib Tun Razak. He says that is going to continue, and well, with regards to changes, what do you see being changed from the budget based on what the oil prices were and what it is now?
Okay, there are a few things that the government, in particular the Prime Minister, has identified need to be reviewed, and as per the expectation of the market analysts, is true that the projects now none of the projects have been deferred or delayed. Okay, that's a good thing, because like I said just now, when you cut development expenditure, that means you are going to curb the economic momentum and all that. Okay, that's the good part of it is the overall all the measures, the 6 main measures that has been identified here is going to save about nearly about 6 billion ringgit. 5 to 6 billion. That's a good thing, because earlier they have already, by withdrawal of the subsidy itself, it's already saving about 15 to 20. So at least these two. And also the other thing is the average market or average price of crude oil for the 2015 budget, the revised budget, is now based on average price of 55 dollars per barrel. Okay, this is quite a realistic value given. Okay, given that the current price is also below the 50, trading around the lowest level was about 45. And the other thing is the new fiscal deficit that is sort of like Prime Minister has mentioned, that is 3.2% of GDP, given the current current scenario. That's also welcoming, and also there are certain things that the government looking at it is, in particular, the government expectation is to have a bigger, because of the 35 cents reduction in December, in January, okay, effective January, they sort of release about 6 billion disposable income. Okay, I mean that's also in terms of disposable income, it is it is good that it is going to promote consumption. Right. Okay. Also the weaker ringgit, he has touched on the weaker ringgit. He has mentioned that it is because of the external, the loss of confidence and all that. Okay, it is not something like the previous crisis. Indirectly,
he did mention 98,
97, 98 and 2008 and 2009.
Yeah.
In other words, is you can, I read between the lines. In other words, he is trying to tell that there is no capital control. Okay, that's also welcoming for the market. Right. That's so the ringgit in his, is expected to recover soon.
Right, and of course with the ringgit too, he did talk about, speaking of the ringgit, he did talk about the currencies the world over. It's not only the ringgit that's suffering, and he says the ringgit is not suffering if you compare it to the American dollar. And what did he mean by this?
No, I don't get.
He says the ringgit, where it is at this point, is we're still not at a point of danger as compared to other currencies. He did also mention very briefly about the American dollar, and he said the American dollar seems to fluctuate quite a bit, and we don't see
during the crisis.
During the crisis, yes.
During the crisis, the American dollar has been volatile very much. But in this case, he has put in place a few measures to look at the depreciation, to avoid any further depreciation of the ringgit, like on the GLCs. Asked to invest locally. It's a good thing, because in recent years, if you look at it, a lot of GLCs, GLICs have been investing overseas and all that. So in a way that,
so that has been turned back into the nation. These investments have to be done locally now.
And also the other thing is, the government is targeting is the tourism, because it's a weaker ringgit is good for to promote your domestic tourism.
But having said that, you have to strategically promote tourism in countries that
in the country. Yes. So the Visit Malaysia year activities should be this one, because we must try to then the visa waiver. Visa waiver for the Chinese tourists is a very timely. We have been hoping for that fast decision. It's good that it has been announced just now. So we can expect more tourists coming in, and benefiting from the weaker ringgit. It's cheaper now to come to Malaysia.
Right. Going back to what he said when he first opened his special address, he did mention. He says, we are not in crisis. So if you read between the lines, what does that tell you?
Why he is referring to we are not in crisis, because a lot of people, they have been saying that we are in crisis, and we are whether we are in the recession. He is talking about in the mind of, the growth is still good. Okay, now they have reduced the growth also, growth target. From 5 to 6% is 4.5 to 5%. To me, 4.5 to 5.5. To me, it's a very realistic, because you look at it. All these things. I mean, the drop in oil prices is not going to entirely affect the nation. It is a situation where it is a global concern. Okay, and when it is a global concern, people will not, the policymakers, global policymakers, will tend to make a decision that is in terms of avoid the further drop in oil prices. They will pressure, global agencies will pressure the OPEC and non-OPEC countries, to cut their production, and then also the US will be pressured to this one. And that's so in other words, when he said that there is not a crisis, he is saying that it is not a recession.
There was also a little something that stood out in his special address when he talked about us being a net importer of oil as opposed to a net exporter. Now, how do you explain this?
This is something that we have been talking about it. Previously, we always talk about oil and gas. So at least now the government is trying to see the petroleum side and the LNG side, So it is not lumped together, oil and gas. So from the perspective of petroleum products, he did say that that we are a net importer. Okay, we know that we export crude oil, but we import petroleum products. Like the processed oil. So on that basis, now the government classify based on the data, it is seen as that we are a net importer. On the other side, the LNG, liquefied natural gas, is we are a net exporter. So this is the only difference. Previously, we were talking about net exporter of oil and gas, 20% and all that.
With regards to the emoluments, the changes or the cutbacks there, do you think that's promising?
I think quite promising. I think there are certain agencies that, like PLKN.
PLKN, yes. That's going to be National Service, that is.
Million,
is going to be saved from. So it's going to be deferred for a year.
Yeah.
It's
a good thing because I think the effectiveness need to be relook at it. Whether it's really effective. Whether it is. We need to, any projects after we implement, we must see costs and benefits.
So that's a little something. I mean, from top downwards, whether it's in private or the civil service, this is going to be looked at all year. Whether it's effective, the cost, if it needs to be implemented, or if a program can be carried on, so to speak.
Another thing that Prime Minister has talked about it, if they don't do anything, like we have earlier, I have been talking about this. If they don't cut, or they review the budget, means that the fiscal deficit can widen to around 3.9% of GDP. That's the government's. They have clearly said that if they don't do anything today, that means the fiscal deficit could have gone to that level. So now with all these measures in place, they are targeting a 3.2%.
Right. So
I think it's quite realistic, and I'm sure the rating agencies will understand that this is something that is unavoidable, not at the whims and fancy of government. Okay. Government want to show seriousness, want to cut, trim your expenditure, like what they have shown here.
Right.
Okay, and also they have I think Prime Minister did mention about the entertainment. There's something on the supplies. Only strategic equipments will be bought or will be purchased.
The procuring of equipment.
Procurement.
So they'll be only looking at things that we really need at this point, right? We'll take another break, and when we come back, we'll continue finding out, or rather trying to make more sense out of what's happening economically around the world, and also things that can be done within Malaysia to, of course, better ourselves economically, or to be safe during economic hard times, which is being suffered the world over. We'll come back in a short while right here at the Grandstand. Thank you very much for joining us. Hello and welcome back to the Grandstand. I'm Jared Ratnam, and currently joining us in the studio is Manokaran Mottain, who's a chief economist with Alliance Bank. We're talking about measures that are being taken by our country at this point in order to see us through 2015. And of course, we have another milestone to meet, which is this is the final milestone, or as what the Prime Minister says, this is the final milestone before 2020, and we need to tweak things, and of course take a look at certain things that are being done before we hit 2020, or we want to achieve the 2020 high income nation status, and to get there we need to do a little tweaking before that point arrives. But that being said, the Honourable Prime Minister did talk about the current account exports. What's your take on this? Okay,
they try to address the concerns of the potential current account deficit given the current situation and all that. So it has been clear that now the government is going to aggressively promote exports, given that the weaker currency, weaker ringgit is in terms of trade competitiveness is benefiting Malaysia. Okay, so among the measures that have been sort of identified to assist, I think they are focusing more on SMEs, businesses.
Yeah, he did talk about SMEs, and he's talking about reinvigorating or revitalizing the SME sector.
Export potential of these SME sectors is a good thing. Second is also not only they are going to, I think some new allocation has been set aside for SME businesses, but also in business wise, I think they are going to help them to promote these overseas and all that kind of thing.
Right.
Okay. And also the focus is going to be promoting exports in major destinations. Like some 40 over nations trading with Malaysia, so they will have a increased focus, to promote Malaysia there. On that basis, and then also on the import side, he did say that certain imports will be reduced, okay, for the government as well as for the private sector. So
we're going to go local once again, yeah. Buy Malaysian. We're going to be coming up with stuff like that, promotions like that, in order to.
No. I think this for the projects given, the investment projects. So what they will do is to delay only certain strategic. In this kind of time, when you import too much, also it is going to hurt your current account balance.
Balance, yeah.
So in this case, in order to maintain a current account balance, healthy current account balance, they need to sort of like reschedule government projects like ETP and all that. These are all import contents,
right.
A lot of import contents. So they have to delay. They might be delaying, but they have not. I mean, not clearly mentioned that which are the projects and all that. But it's good thing that. He put a stop to the speculation that development expenditure will not be cut. Okay, that's is something that the market anxiously looking for. So want to hear,
development expenditure. If it's cut, what's going to happen?
What's going to happen? Which are the projects going to be delayed and all that? So he has mentioned some of the projects clearly, that LRT 3, MRT 2,
right.
And
so
also rapid.
Yeah, you did mention, before the address, you did mention that the high-speed rail link between Singapore,
yes, potentially, possibly delayed or something like that. Now he said that
that's going to be ongoing.
Yeah. But I still believe that although the government has mentioned that it is not going to be this one, but maybe the part on the aggressiveness will be sort of like tweaked, Instead of, you still can implement those projects, okay? Not in the first half of the year, maybe second half of the year.
Right.
Still the budget is still coming in the in this year. That's my opinion.
Right.
Okay, and import part, I think they really have to cut. The non-strategic imports must be deferred, So in order to maintain our current account in healthy balance.
Right. Well, as for us as a nation, what can be done by you and me to help make this a better process for the nation? By the people, what can be done by the people as an economist?
As an economist, it is. I think. Okay, let me put it this: the government or the Prime Minister has mentioned that it is not a crisis. That doesn't mean that everybody has to go lavish spending and all that. You see. So, but we are in a difficult, whether you like it or not, given that the current situation, it is a difficult situation, difficult time. The government need to, or the riot, the people need to understand, how do we, okay, the government is taking certain measures. The riot also must take certain measures in order to help them hand in hand, like reduce your traveling part. Okay, personal non-essentials traveling should be controlled, so that you can curb your outflow of your forex. Okay, that's one. Buy Malaysians.
Right.
I've been talking about this. This is a few interviews I've already talking about buy Malaysians. don't go for imported goods and all that. Local goods are as competitive as the foreign ones.
Right.
Okay, so you can have like you can buy Malaysian produced goods. They are equally good, and in that way our spending, or the outflow of the ringgit, for payment of overseas and all that, can be curbed. So help the currency to recover.
Right.
Okay, and also the rakyat also is now we are in a situation where our disposable income is better, improving, given that the oil prices, lower oil prices. I expect another 30 cents per litre will be dropped in any time, come February, at the end of the month, okay, effective February. So that will give another boost for your personal disposable. Okay, that's on the rakyat side. So when we have this money, I mean, we also try to save. Okay, that's one. Second, on the part of the traders, please, when the oil price was going up, they have been raising prices. Right. When the oil price come down, please understand that people also know. So please reduce the prices.
People understand basic economics.
Yeah. So when we go and buy a plate of meat, they say that, oil price has gone up and all that, so we have to raise the price.
Right.
Yes, we understand that, your cost of production. But when the price of oil come down, your cost of production has come down.
Right.
But what you got to say that your exchange rate is weakening, so very difficult this and that. You are not for a plate of meat. You just look at a plate of meat. How much of your import content is there?
Right.
You're going to import noodles from overseas, or you are going to import oil from overseas? No, all are locally. In fact, so on that basis, if they can reduce it, can help the government also to promote.
So you shouldn't be paying the price of pasta for the mee goreng you're buying. Basically, that's something we should look at, especially traders will. We'll take another short break, and when we come back, of course, we'll talk a little bit more about this as to what we can do to help better the economy, or what we can do on our part as citizens of the country to help the government achieve what we want to achieve. And also talk a little bit about the GST. So much talk ongoing about the GST. Just go check your Facebook page, any social media. If you're talking to friends, everyone's talking about the GST. Well, we'll of course hear from Chief Economist of Alliance Bank, Manokaran Mottain. When we come back, we'll find out his take on this. And are we going to be killed or slaughtered with the GST? We'll come back and find out in a short while. Stay with us right here at the Grandstand. Hello Malaysia, and welcome back to the Grandstand. We're talking about measures being taken by the government in order to prepare ourselves for 2015. It is definitely going to be a tough year, but with measures put into place and initiative that's brought forward, I'm sure we can weather whatever's coming our way. Of course, joining me in the studio for the next few minutes is Manokaran Mottain, who's taken time off his busy schedule to join us right here at the Grandstand to talk to us a little bit, or to give us some information as to what the economy is like, the outlook is like, and what we can do. Well, speaking of what we can do, what we're worried about now is what I want to talk about, the GST. A lot of us still are finding it hard to understand the GST, taking time to understand the GST, and we're finding it hard simply because not because there's not the lack of information, maybe because there's too much information. We get information about the GST, and then you go online, there are many theories about the GST at this point. So as it stands, with what you know so far from the time the 2015 budget was tabled last year to now, when you look at when you speak to people, what do you understand about this whole thing, that we don't understand ourselves?
Actually, I think it's the publicity given by the media, and I mean the online media. or the social media, those are the things that has sort of like confused the people. So
How do
when
you
you
mean
get
when you say-
confused, they say that this is additional tax.
Right.
This is something that is going to burden the people and that kind of thing. But you have to understand that previously, the government is in a situation whereby they have to look at the you see, we have been talking about the tax from oil and gas. Now, you see, we depend on oil and gas too much that a distortion in prices sort of like affecting the country's budget.
Right. So this is what the GST is also helping
reduce the dependency on oil and gas. Okay, in order to reduce the dependency, you need to you need to look at the other taxes, direct and indirect taxes. So you can't simply raise taxes. So
Right.
will the people like it? Okay, we raise personal tax and all that. No, I don't think there will be more negative, if they raise personal tax
Right.
or corporate tax and all that. So in other words, this is a consumption tax. You consume certain items, then you have to pay.
Right.
See, in this case, like GST given here in Malaysia, I think a lot of items have been sort of like either zero rated or tax exempt. So, but the publicity given in the social media is really bad. I think people are purposely trying to create an image that the government is not doing the right thing and all that kind of thing.
But the people who are taking advantage of this at this point, like you said before, are the traders. With all these bad press being given to the GST or in what's being talked about on social media, traders are taking advantage of the situation and raising prices. Of course, that's something that will if we are educated or if we know about the GST and we're well informed about the GST, not educated but well informed about the GST, we will be able to. It'll be easier for us to curb this, isn't it?
Yeah, that's where the enforcement activities are coming, you see. Traders are simply raising price, reluctant to reduce the price and all that. If the enforcement activities, enforcement is strong, then you won't have any problem, that, the prices has to remain sticky high and all that. Okay, in this case, the GST, I think implementation is not a problem.
Right.
It will still come in on the 1st of April, but I'm looking at enforcement. You know how enforcement, people are collecting.
Right.
You have this problem. Even in advanced economy like Singapore, we had this problem. First 2 years, there were a lot of dodges there. People collect your GST and they don't pay to the government. So these kind of things we have to.
So enforcement at this point, enforcement is going to be very important because when it comes to giving out information or the dissemination of information and how the tax, the GST works, I think that the Customs Department has been doing a fantastic job. You can ask them off the cuff any question, and they would be able to answer you or answer whatever question you put forward to them. Because I firsthand had that experience of talking to them, ask them anything at all, and they will explain it to you like they're explaining it to a 5-year-old child, as to how this works. And it makes it very, I was really impressed with the way they've learned so much and gained so much experience and also information about the GST to help us understand it. But in closing, what would you say is the most important thing for us to look at this point come the implementation of the GST for those of us who are taxpayers? And for those of us who want to help make a difference, what do you think we need to look at this point?
I think we can help, in terms of implementation side. Okay, if we realize that there are certain people who are not, who are not genuine enough, collect the collection part, whether it has been sort of remitted.
Need to report it.
Report it. Okay, if we think that. This one, but we need to understand the whole system of GST is something for the better. If you look at it, only two nations, two or three nations have not implemented GST, and we are one of them in the region. You know,
right?
Burma, Myanmar, or Brunei. Okay, and Malaysia.
Right.
So with the now we are out already. So we can, and also it is a consumption tax. It is a replacement tax. And if you look at it, sales SST, sales and service tax, was at 10 plus 5, 15%.
15%.
Now what the government is implementing is 6%, and it is a broader base. That's it.
So it's a broader base tax, and it's definitely going to be implemented in April, that's for sure. We need to, if you don't understand anything about it, there's so much of information being given out, especially by the Customs Department. That's if you're a business owner, if you need to find out more, please go find out. They will be more than happy to furnish you with all the information you need. On the part of us as citizens of the country, we need to, of course, keep an eye out, keep our eyes peeled for prices rising indiscriminately and traders who are taking advantage of this. And whatever happens, if we have information about this, it will be helpful if we can send this information to those in charge or to the authorities in order for them to take action. And more importantly, what's important, when the tax is implemented or the GST is implemented, enforcement will be very important. Yeah.
I think one thing the government can do is educate the consumers also. Okay, at this point of time, their focus is to to get the businesses registered and all that. I think the consumers also need to be educated on GST.
Right. On that note, we'd like to thank you, Manokaran Mottain, the Chief Economist of from Alliance Bank, joining us right here at the Grandstand. Thank you very much for staying with us. Stay with us right here on Bernama TV for news updates. We'll be back tomorrow with more, and of course, that's going to be happening at The Nation. Have a great day ahead.